The three big MOOC providers right now are Coursera, which is the organization that we have a contract with and our courses are being offered under. Udacity was formed by, I guess, the first MOOC man, Sebastian Thrun, who offered an AI course. He was a Stanford professor, offered an AI course, artificial intelligence course on machine learning. The New York Times happened to pick it up, and he ended up with 150,000 students enrolled in the course. Subsequently, he resigned his tenure at Stanford and started Udacity, saying that he couldn't go back to teaching the old way. Udacity and Coursera are for profit, though I don't believe either of them is making a profit yet, but their plans are to do so. edX is a joint venture of Harvard and MIT. Each school put in $30 million to start this venture. So there is some, and both Coursera and Udacity have venture capital money behind them. Okay, interesting developments. There's something called the Minerva Project, which has, I think, Bob Carey is on the board, and Larry Summers is on the board, I believe. And the idea of this is to create a top-tier for-profit research university. Students will live together on different campuses, and maybe a semester at a time or a year at a time, they will progress to another campus in another country. Okay? They expect to stream classes from top professors around the world. There's a big difference here between this and, say, the University of Phoenix. Usually, if you look at a place like Strayer or University of Phoenix, they don't have top professors presenting material. So even though this is supposed to be a for-profit, I think it's going to be a different kind of venture than, say, University of Phoenix. Okay, this is the one to me that's the most scary. Okay, Georgia Tech has announced a professional online Master of Science degree, computer science, earned through MOOCs. They've got some support from AT&T. I think they've been doing some in-house programs for AT&T or a relationship with AT&T. This is the scary part, because instead of pricing the program as a premium, okay, they're offering it for $7,000. I've even seen numbers like $6,500 for this, for 3 years to get a master's degree in computer science. If you did this on campus, $40,000, $50,000. Okay? They have arrangements with 4,500 Pearson Learning Centers and other places to proctor exams. And that's the key thing if you want to do a MOOC for credit. How do you know that the student who signed up is the student taking the course and taking the exams? And so one way you can do this, we were just talking about this when I came in, is to use photo IDs and have you actually attend a learning center of some kind to take an exam. Lauren was mentioning that Coursera is now doing something like this for its signature track, where you pay something for your certificate. Do you know how much they're charging for it? It's $50. Okay. And they're doing a webcam and a photo ID, evidently, and also, I believe, monitoring your typing, okay, so that you can compare to see if the person is the same person who's taking the test, okay? Okay, so this is what I did. This isn't really true. It didn't end a month ago. That was just an old slide. It's actually ended at the end of March or beginning of April. And I took the course, but I didn't do very well. I did not earn a statement of accomplishment. Okay. 10 large public university systems have formed a partnership with Coursera. This is the list of the schools. Some of them plan to blend online materials with faculty classroom-led sessions. Others will offer credit to students who take the courses online and then take a proctored exam. So what's changing a little bit here is a movement from credit hours, which has been our currency forever, to mastery of a subject in some way. Okay. Okay, so let me ask, are MOOCs, online and blended courses, a threat to American higher education? Yes? Not sure? No. How many people see it as a threat to what we're doing? Okay. And my marketing colleagues tell you that there really aren't any threats, there are only opportunities. Okay, so there's an opportunity for us in this as well, I think. Okay, so let me try to distinguish here, and it's hard because everything blends together. There's a traditional class, okay? That's the class thing we've been doing forever. I didn't know this in advance, so I've been a little bit scared had I known it, but Pat O'Shea, who's the Vice President of Research for the university, took my MOOC in March. Okay. Okay. And he said he felt a lot of social pressure because he didn't put a lot of time into the midterm and didn't do all that well, so he really worked hard on the final project. I didn't ask him if he got a certificate. I assume he did. But you know, he showed me if you go to Wikipedia and look up university, there is a picture there of a classroom. It's not actually a photo, it's a painting from Italy around 1550. And you can recognize everything there, okay? The only thing that's different is the clothes look a little more funky than what we wear today. But there was a professor standing up lecturing, and in the back of the room there was a student asleep. Okay, so it's just very much nothing has changed, all right? Okay. So that's the traditional class that we've been doing since at least 1500. Fully online, okay? Fully online is synchronous and asynchronous. The asynchronous model is the University of Phoenix, is Strayer, is all of those kinds of for-profit schools, for the most part, okay? Synchronous says that we will have some sessions where we meet online together using some kind of a technology platform. Last fall, I taught an online course to 24 part-time MBAs. We have 3 campuses outside of College Park. And I had 24 students across those 3 campuses, and we used Adobe Connect. Subsequently, University of Maryland, Brian Voss and all have negotiated a 1,000-seat license for Adobe Connect. It is available for anyone. You can even set up a meeting yourself. You can go on a meeting with 5 friends if you want to. There's documentation for it, and there's a very helpful staff here who will work with you on it. They have also added something which we used last night for the first time. I used last night for the first time, which is an audio bridge, which means that you use a telephone with Adobe Connect and they're integrated together. The advantage of that is that when I used Adobe Connect a year ago, sometimes we had trouble with the audio, okay? And this way the audio doesn't have to come over the internet, it comes over the phone line, which right now is more reliable. And so those 2 things integrated together make things work pretty well. Okay, that's synchronous, asynchronous, okay. Blended, okay. Blended, I think, is what most people who have looked at this and who have taught this way think is probably the best alternative that you can come to. Okay? Blended says, I'm not going to lecture in class very much, maybe not at all, but I'm going to record my lectures in probably no more than about a 10-minute chunk. So part of teaching this way is taking your hour-long lecture, or however long it has been, and figuring out places to stop and modules to put together. Because it looks like most people don't want to sit down and watch a video for an hour of you lecturing. But they will watch it for 10 minutes and then go have a snack or run around the block or do something else and come back and watch the next 10 minutes. Okay? So blended, I taught a blended MBA course to our full-time program last spring. We just tried for the first time. I just got back a week ago from teaching a blended course in our EMBA program, Executive MBA program in Beijing, China. Okay? And I don't have the results back from that yet, but the spring class went pretty well. And we have some people in the business school now who are starting to teach blended courses. Okay? And then the MOOC that we all know about. Okay, confessions. Okay. It's an intensive development effort. I didn't realize how much time it was going to take when I sat down to put the MOOC together. The MOOC was not based on a course that I had been teaching. Okay. It was a new subject matter. It was based actually on a book I had written, so I had the research for it, but I didn't have any lectures or anything prepared in advance of that. In some respects, that was a little bit easier because I didn't have to take an hour lecture and break it into pieces. So I could start out thinking I need 10 minutes as we go along. Okay? This is the configuration that Coursera recommends for people. Okay? It is a Wacom tablet and your PC. What happens with the tablet is that it duplicates what's on your PC screen and it has a pen, which means that you can draw things on here and they show up exactly where you draw them. So you can underline something, you can circle it, you don't have to guess where it is on the big screen. My tablet cost $1,000. We bought one a few months ago for $750. Okay. There are probably others out there. I didn't have a lot of time. I didn't do research, so I'm not getting any money from Wacom, and I'm not necessarily endorsing it, but we've got it and it works. Okay. The other thing I had to do, the software that we're using for recording is called Camtasia. Camtasia is a very powerful program. The university has a license for it, $120, something like that. You can download it to your machine. I found that my home computer, where I was doing all of this, did not have the horsepower to run Camtasia and the Wacom tablet. So I had to upgrade to a quad-core, I think 8 GB machine. Then I didn't have any problems. Okay. I don't know if that's the minimum you can get away with. You might be able to get away with something less than that. But the latest version of Camtasia was using a lot of processing power, and it was dropping frames. So if you've ever seen a badly dubbed movie, that's how my lectures were coming out. Okay. The audio didn't go with the video. The main advantage you get out of Camtasia is the flexibility of what you do with the video window. Okay. So I can take, and this all depends on how you feel about it. I sort of like to think I was having a conversation with the students. So I had a video window in this corner of the screen. I can size that window, and by standing on my head, rubbing my stomach, I can take my video out and put it back in again. That got too complicated, so I didn't do it. I just left my video there. Lauren recorded. She had to record a session for me to show actually how to remove the video and put it back in again. A lot of powerful editing features. I did not use very many of them, but you still can edit with it. I tried editing a Panopto thing once, and I just destroyed it. Okay. So this you can edit quite. The main thing I did with this was to take out mistakes. Okay. So let me give you a very practical hint. You're sitting here in front of your webcam on the top there, and suddenly you have a coughing fit. Okay. What you want to do is raise your hand and wave at the camera. And then you stop coughing and you raise your hand and say, I'm ready to go again. Then you go back and cut out between the hand waves. You can find it easily that way. Okay? All right. So to show what you can do with this, I did do a video lecture for some of our faculty. Okay? Because with the pen, you can really teach any kind of course you want to teach. We have in the business school courses which are case-oriented, discussion-oriented. We also have quantitative courses, data analysis, modeling, statistics. So you can take a blank PowerPoint and draw on it just like a whiteboard. So if you like to lecture by putting equations on the board, you can do that. Or you can put partial equations on and go back and fill them in. And so I just did this little video to show what you can do with it. Can you make this available to people, or can you make the slides available? I don't want to play it now because it's 5 minutes or so.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing I had, which was tremendous help, was 2 fantastic teaching assistants. So we'll look at the first teaching assistant. This is Frankie, and that's his prescribed reading. Okay. And what I would usually do is hold Frankie up in the beginning of a session and explain to him an overview of what was going on. Okay. I'm sorry to say that Frankie got more fan mail than I did. And when I got to China, the first thing they asked me was not, how was your trip? It was, how was Frankie? Okay. I also had a human teaching assistant named Danielle Wong, who was excellent. She would monitor the discussion boards, and then she would send me a link if there was someplace where maybe I needed to respond or answer something. One of my great surprises with Coursera and the MOOC was the amount of discussion board activity. I have more trouble getting MBAs to use the discussion board. Now again, you're talking about thousands of students, so if 1% of them use the discussion board, that's a lot of people, right? But my MOOC is starting up again. The videos don't get released until Sunday. The discussion board already has activity on it. I had a seminar. I only had 16,000 students.
Is that one discussion board for 16,000 students, or is it broken up geographically or by surname?
It's not geographically, but I had it kind of disorganized the first time around, and Lauren looked at it for this second go around and suggested we try to organize it with each week. I have discussion questions for each week, and rather having those all interspersed on one board, we're trying to get people to use a sub-forum for a week, week 1, week 2, week 3. Coursera has some standing discussion boards, so there's one for people looking for partners. So you'll find emails on there saying, would you like to form a study group in Paris for this course? Okay, things of that sort. I did an informal count based on a getting to know you survey that a small fraction of students filled out, and I estimated I had students from a little under 100 countries. And that's pretty exciting for an instructor, certainly.
But it's still essentially one board for all students.
Right.
And you're saying multiple threads.
Multiple threads throughout that board, yeah. Okay, so there was a very positive response from that. I've got some statistics later on that show the attrition rate, because it's high for these courses. Okay, Betsy Beast did this analysis, or maybe Ben did this analysis. Betsy did, okay. This was a getting to know you question. This was a course on surviving disruptive technologies. I should have mentioned that. 72% indicated being affected by a technological disruption. I estimated, 3-4 hours a week. This is how many hours they thought they would be spending. Most of them seem to be in that 1 to 3 category. We had a lot of professionals in this, and we can see that also on the next slide on the age distribution. Okay, so my students were older than the typical students taking this because I think they were mostly professionals who were interested in it. I'm surprised at the 13-year-old. I think I know who the 80-year-old is. I had an email from the second dean to offer me a job 100 years ago, and he was retired and living in a community associated with a college and getting courses and other things, so I think that was Bill. Right? 64% men, 36% women. Okay, these are the countries. Betsy found 35 countries via email. I found about 100 on the survey. Mostly North America. I guess what else? Who's this? This is Europe. Yeah. Very small China. And I'm not sure if we were blocked in China. There was something about, you had something about trying to increase the students in China.
So Coursera.
Okay, this is the kind of attrition you get, and it's one of the reasons that the critics of MOOCs say they aren't very good, because people drop out. I have a different philosophy about that. This is not a course for college credit, okay? So if a student watches 3 of my lectures, I hope they know more than when they started. And that's fine, that's what this is all about. This is not about getting a certain number of credit hours, okay, so that you can graduate. So I had 16,000 registered. About half of them showed up for class, and then each week you can see that the first week you lose a lot. It just wasn't the right course for these people. And then you lose 85 to 90% stay with you for the next week. But by the time you're done with 7 weeks, then you're down to a couple of thousand students. Okay, so we're doing it again. It starts actually on Monday for 7 weeks. You're all welcome to join it. I'll not know that you've done it, so you know. We're trying something else, possibly under the radar, but I have about 15 MBA students who are going to do additional work beyond the Coursera course and get 2 credits for taking the course. Because I think the future is going to be that we will use materials like MOOCs in our classrooms and grant credit for them, but they will be local to our school or to our unit, and we will probably, for example, okay, these students are not Maryland students. They're all over the world. They don't have access to our library resources. So I'm limited in what I can assign to them. One of the things Coursera wants us to do is not have anything that requires the students to spend money. So if you adopt a textbook, if you have them buy a readings packet, that's going to discourage a lot of students from taking the course. And you can see why, right? So many of them sign up and then decide it's not the right course and don't take the course. It might be hard for them to return it. It also might be hard for people in many parts of the world to get those materials, particularly a book. Okay. Okay. Okay, so what's the threat? Well, the threat is places like Georgia Tech, okay? Not loading a lot of overhead onto their Master of Computer Science degree. I'm questioning even if they're recovering their variable costs in that. Okay? By the time you pay instructors, you create the MOOCs and do all of that. But this, if you think about a MOOC or a MOOC university, you don't need a campus like this. You don't need a football team. You don't need all kinds of things that cost a lot of money. Okay? So the overhead is substantially lower. If you want to come in at the low end on this, okay, you could hire adjuncts to be the discussion leaders and use MOOCs from college professors from other colleges. Okay? Now, I hope places don't do that. I think there's a real opportunity here to bring a MOOC in to enrich the course that you're teaching now or to build a course around that MOOC. So, yeah, right. It is, yeah. It's Generation Rwanda or something like that.
With that whole idea.
Right. And they hope to have like a tuition of $1,500 or less. And you say, well, maybe that's not going to be the same quality the University of Maryland provides for a bachelor's degree. On the other hand, the article I read about that said that 1% of the population in Rwanda has a college degree.
Yes.
Okay. So it's a great idea. In fact, I read an article about a woman who's been recruited to go and be a discussion leader. Okay. I think she has a master's degree. She's not a PhD person. But to lead a discussion based on a MOOC, do you need a PhD? I'm not sure. Might get in the way. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Coursera has an algorithm, I guess, right, for looking at people who have...
It's manual.
A manual algorithm for looking at people who were active in the first time a course was given, and then asking them if they want to be a community TA to monitor and respond to the boards. So I said, fine, the more help, the better. Okay. So those people, yeah, so I've got 6 or 7. I guess my answer to that would be that that's potentially a problem. I mean, the TAs may give a wrong answer to someone. On the other hand, when it comes time to give the course for credit, then I'll have my own TA. I wouldn't use a community TA for a course for credit. Okay. So I think there's less risk here in that situation. The other thing I would I would say, and I usually preface any class or mention this to students, is everybody I've talked to who has tried this or worked in this field says that all forms of technology-enhanced education put more responsibility on the students, taking it away from the faculty member. We do less hand-holding in this kind of a course or in any online course. So students have to be more mature, and there's going to be a transition period because they're not used to it, just as we're not used to teaching this way. I think it's fine. Quite frankly, I would be happy to see the University of Maryland be the MOOC provider for the state of Maryland, for all the universities in Maryland. Why not? Right? I mean, Coursera has a name, but we have a name in Maryland, right? So if we did a little promotion, bought a few AdWords on Google, you could probably have our own MOOC operation here if we wanted to do that. Okay? Something I mentioned earlier, which doesn't work as well with Ben's no labor content, was Google Hangouts. They encourage you, I shouldn't say encourage, they make the option available to have a Google Hangout with students. And so what I did toward the end of the week, since the videos were released in the beginning of the week, we would have a 1-hour Google Hangout. Danielle, who was working with me on this course, would go through and find people who had been active that week on the discussion boards and invite them to a Google Hangout. I tried to vary the times of them a little bit so that maybe it would help people from different parts of the country or different parts of the world. Lauren monitored a Twitter feed, so it was a hashtag SDT or something like that? Something like that. On Twitter, and Danielle monitored it on YouTube. Now the way this worked, and I understand it's working better now, it's partially automated, it was a little bit of a fire drill to get the thing working each time. You would do you'd set up the Google Hangout, and I've got to remember the order of this. I think I set up the Google Hangout, then I went to Coursera's course page and inserted a link to it, and that automatically was streamed on YouTube. Okay? And then at the end of the Hangout, YouTube processed the video, and about a half an hour later it was posted on YouTube for the course. What I did in the Google Hangouts, I essentially had discussion questions for the topic of the week, and we discussed those. They were successful from my standpoint because I like having some interaction with students, so the idea of never interacting with a student for a 7-week course wasn't very appealing. How many students did I interact with? Maybe 20. Okay? And oftentimes somebody would say, I'm coming to the Hangout, and they never showed up. So I had between like 3 and 4 and 6 or 7. Google Hangouts can have 10 people at a time, okay, on it. And that's fine for a discussion. To have 6 or 7 or 8 people on the Google Hangout worked well. We had no technical problems with the Hangout. Okay, that all went fine. So that's more labor intensive, and you can't do this course 6 times a year and have Google Hangouts unless you bring somebody else in to do them for you. At least I can't. Okay, so threats, yes, a much different cost structure than what we have, but think of the opportunity for students. I mean, think about the students in Rwanda or students in Africa or someplace else. They would never have a chance to take a course from a faculty member at an American or European or even a top quality Asian university. Okay? So the opportunity is really there to raise the level of education globally. And I know there are people who think that we shouldn't do anything that doesn't directly benefit the citizens of Maryland. I look at that a little differently. I think our out-of-state students do a lot for us, i.e. they pay a big tuition compared to our in-state students. Okay? And I hope that a citizen of Maryland wouldn't object if we offered a course that really helps some people in other parts of the world lead better lives. Yes? I think this clearly raises the level of competition among schools. And we compete with other schools primarily to attract students, right? But once they're here, I mean, we lose more than we'd like to lose, but we probably don't lose them to other schools because they think that other school is better for some reason. Okay? What this does now is to bring us to a level of competition at the course. They can say, well, Lucas is giving this course on surviving disruptive technologies, but there's somebody at the University of Chicago who's doing that course too, and I think his is better. He's got a better looking dog, he talks about, you know, all kinds of things. Right? Okay? So our competition is not going to stop at the matriculation stage. It's going to go all through the time the students are here. And this is the fear the faculty has every place. Well, we become TAs. I didn't spend 20 years in college to become a TA for some guy on a video. Okay? So what's the answer to that? How do we not let that happen? Okay? Let me expand on that a little bit. For example, if you think about it, if I asked you, those of you who teach in this room, is all you do give lectures? Well, the answer is no. Yeah. Okay? You determine the content of a course from a vast amount of material that's out there. You decide what little bit, that's your filter, gets into the course. You organize that material. You try to create frameworks so that people understand it. You have class, you have assignments and papers, you have all kinds of things that are a part of teaching. And so the question is, how do we add value? So if I were an economics professor, okay, which I'm not, if I were an economics professor and someone said, you know, Larry Summers has a MOOC, and so does Glenn Hubbard. Now, Glenn Hubbard was one of Mitt Romney's advisors. Larry Summers was one of Obama's advisors. Wouldn't it be nice to sort of mix and match lectures from that, have your own debate in class, and that's a part of how you add value and bring it to the classroom? Okay? So I think it's a great opportunity to use these materials not to replace you, but to supplement and enhance the quality of what you do in the classroom. So we have to innovate, we have to compete on quality, maybe we'll compete on niche subjects. I encourage very much what Ben is doing in the university, getting into MOOCs, because eventually there will be royalties charged for MOOCs, so that if Johns Hopkins wants to take one of our MOOCs, they'll pay us for it. And so I think we want to have a nice inventory of MOOCs so that we get a positive balance of trade out of all of this, that we bring in as much money as we're spending to license MOOCs from other universities for our students. Okay? Okay. One of the things about online learning, and that appeals to our part-time students certainly, is the flexibility it provides of not having to be in a physical place all the time to do their education. Okay? And so a part of this, what you get back for taking more responsibility for your own education, is you get a flexibility that is not present in our current rigid system of classes meeting at a set time and a set place. Okay? I think one of the things all the universities ought to be looking at now is trying to figure out how to reduce their cost structures. Okay? Both because there's pressure on us to reduce the cost of college, but I think the pressure from things like MOOCs is just as much as it is from the federal government on trying to reduce the cost of college. The places that are moving to use MOOCs more and more are going to have a lot lower cost structure than what we do. One of the things I find lacking a lot of places is a sense of urgency about all of this, a spirit of innovation. I don't see a lot of support for faculty transitioning to new teaching models. In answer to your question, I don't see that. Okay? I think you can sort of develop some scenarios of what a university might look like in the future. I think in this case that first movers do have an advantage because you get out there and you get your reputation established and you become the place that people look for MOOCs or look for online coursework. And of course you got to execute successfully. Okay, so I subtitled this The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. What's the good? The good is that we've extended our range globally with this. Okay? I had emails from all over the world. I don't usually get those. One of them was from a student in Pakistan who said, can you do anything with the Google Hangouts because YouTube is blocked in Pakistan? It's also blocked in China, which I found out when I was there a couple of weeks ago. Okay? Potential to raise the global level of education, a highly flexible teaching and learning environment. Okay? The bad, they require a new way of thinking. And we've been thinking the same way since at least 1500. They require massive investment. Okay? I don't think that we can ask faculty to do all the things that are required to create a blended course or a MOOC for the kinds of money we've been spending on it to date. I just don't think we can do that. Okay? Now, I asked the registrar, because I was on a commission last year looking at this issue with Ben, how many unique courses the University of Maryland offered in 2011-12? Anybody want to take a guess how many unique courses we have? You're very close. It's over 5,000. Okay. Let's suppose you wanted to blend 2,000 courses. Okay. If you do 200 a year, you've got a 10-year project in front of you, right? Okay. And are we going to do that for free, or are you going to expect some compensation for doing that, some course development funds? Okay? You may need a new computer, you may want a tablet, you may want a few other things. We're not talking $10,000, we're talking in the tens of millions of dollars if you want to do this right and do it in any reasonable time frame. Okay? Now, Ben has the inside story on this. I don't know what's going on, but I don't sense that level of commitment going on from the university. And this represents change. We teach about change, but we sure don't like to do it ourselves, right? I've never been as scared as when I've been doing these courses, believe me. Go ahead. The ugly, faculty and some administrator reactions to MOOCs, right? Okay. And I find oftentimes that the strongest negative reaction comes from people who haven't thought about it or tried to do one. And so my answer to everyone is, before you condemn a blended course, teach one. Okay? And see what you think. See if you really like it or not, and see what the student reaction is. I think technology-enhanced learning is the Napster moment for universities. Okay? I said I studied disruptive technologies, and one day I woke up and I said, whoa, it's happening to us. It's not just Blockbuster and Kodak and Borders and those people. It's us. It's happening now. So challenges and threats and opportunities. And I think that the schools that compete vigorously in this endeavor and the faculty who figure out how to add value to courses are going to be the ones that really survive and flourish. No, in fact, most blended courses do not have a MOOC. As far as I know, I'm doing the only MOOC that's part of a course.
So when it's
Anybody
blended,
else?
you're talking about a traditional course, and then what do you do to bring in a blend? You have
Okay,
some online?
so if I were teaching my course that I taught blended in the spring, it's a course on strategic and transformational technologies. So there are lectures about technology, decisions people make about the technology.
In class?
In class. Those are all on video now.
So
And
you
the,
record them.
I record them using the setup I showed here. I post them on Canvas. In this case, I put them on YouTube. I'm going to go back and put them in Canvas. Okay? And the students are supposed to watch those. Each week, they're set for the topic of the class.
Why do they have to watch the video if they've already seen it in class?
They haven't seen it in class. I don't do it in class anymore. The video substitutes for the classroom presentation.
Okay.
So in class, we discuss cases, cases from Harvard, from Darden, from other places. And I have an exercise where the students have to bring in something in the news related to the class, themes, and make a presentation about it. And we have that kind of discussion going on as well. 15 is probably a little extreme, but I would say you're going to cut a third of it out. I think that probably if I had 3 or at most 4 10-minute lectures, that would be an hour physically delivering the lecture or more. So you do find a compression in that respect. Our new dean actually taught a blended course when he was a faculty member last spring, and they sent around some of the evaluations from that, which is a pretty brave thing to do, right? To send around your evaluations. But one of the comments from one of the students was very telling. He's a finance professor, and he taught corporate finance. And I'm sure there is some quantitative stuff in corporate finance. And the student said, you know, I wasn't quite sure at first, but I really liked the fact that when I didn't understand something, I could repeat it. Okay? So you give up the immediate ability to ask a question. You have to send email to the professor or to the TA. But what you gain is the ability to sit there and look at it several times. And actually what I would kind of hope as an instructor is that they'd let me know okay, that they were having to watch this part 3 or 4 times, because now it's time to think about how do I re-record that and present it in a different way. We talk about flexibility and we talk about college costs. What about a model where Alice from Hagerstown comes here for her freshman first semester, and then she goes home, she gets a job at Starbucks, and she takes 3 online classes for the winter semester, and maybe she comes back in May and does a lab, okay? So that instead of saying college is 4 years physically present as an undergraduate on a campus, we don't say that anymore. We say you're going to be here for some things, you don't have to be here for other things, and that may very well happen. And I look at the set of dormitories going up outside our building, and I say, maybe this wasn't the best idea. Okay. Maybe it should be a hotel. Okay. Thank you.